Hello everyone, welcome back. And in this video, I want to talk about addiction. Now, I want to talk about it broadly, that why we get addicted and what are some misconceptions about addiction. And then I want to give you some tips that I find very helpful in my own recovery from addiction that people may not realize that they can do that. Okay, so first of all, why is the topic of addiction very interesting to me? And you can see very often that people come on a spiritual path when they recover from addiction. And that was the case with me as well. And I see that very often. People similar in a similar circumstances when they realized that they had an addiction and they try to do something about it, they try to break free. Uh, they naturally, this happens naturally, they come naturally on this path of trying to find a better way of dealing with their life rather than using addiction. Uh, so that always amazed me that so many people became interested in the same things that I am interested now because they were in a similar circumstances, like addiction wise in particular. So let's talk a little bit about addiction. A lot of people, when they hear addiction, they immediately think drugs, maybe heroin, maybe cocaine. Some people associate that with alcohol, but the reality is that there are many addictions, like there are countless number of addictions, and they don't necessarily involve ingesting a substance or smoking, inhaling a substance. They can be behavioral addiction. There are a lot of behavioral addictions, such as gambling or sex or watching pornography, shopping, social media, checking your social media account, taking selfies can be addictive. Engagement in extreme sports such as climbing or motorsports, all of these things going to the gym can be addictive. So on the surface, of course, it looks like these are very different things, right? I mean, the person going to the gym clearly very different from a person shooting up heroin, right? And it's true to some extent that heroin addiction is more extreme and is more dangerous in an immediate future for the person engaging in it, and more damaging probably. But ultimately, there are a lot of similarities between all of these addictions, between the person going to the gym and the person doing heroin. There are a lot of similarities, and the main similarity, and this is what I call the mother of all addictions, this is the addiction that creates all other addictions, right? And that is the addiction to thinking, to compulsive, in particular negative thinking. That is the addiction that is at the bottom of all other addictions. It's because we don't know how to deal with that addiction of negative thinking, of constantly being consumed by negative emotions such as guilt, shame, anger, fear, that we engage in addictive behaviors, hoping that those behaviors free us from our mind, however briefly. And the effect indeed is very brief. As you know, if you engage in any addictive behavior, you will know that you feel very good for a while, but then ultimately the negative mind comes back in, even with more force than before. So next time you need to take that little bit more of the drug, or a little bit engage in an addictive behavior a little bit longer to get the same level of relief. So in other words, the addiction is not sustainable in the long run, and a lot of people come to this realization at a certain point, and they realize, okay, well, actually now the addiction itself has become so painful that it's not worth it anymore. And if you reach that stage in your life, you can consider yourself lucky in a way, because now you naturally have to find a better way of dealing with your negative thinking, because the old ways are not working anymore. They are not even giving you that brief relief that they were before. And that certainly happened to me. I still have my own issues with addiction. I'm recovering from a few addictions, and I will talk about them separately in a different video. But yeah, so when I started recovering, the reason why I decided to quit addictions was that they were not working anymore, and that's a good thing. So a lot of people, when they try to recover from their addiction, they come on this path naturally of watching their mind, dealing with negativity in a more healthy way. Okay, so now I want to share with you an insight that helps me in my recovery. So some people have some misconceptions about how the addiction process works. They think that they have an impulse. Maybe they are sitting in a room, they feel very bad about themselves, there's this negativity, and then they go and reach for that drink, or they go reach for that cigarette, or whatever addictive behavior they might be engaging in. And the moment they've done it, that's it. The addiction cycle is finished, so there's nothing they can do from that point on to fix their addiction. They now need to start to build up the process of recovery again from zero, basically. Now, that's not entirely true, because actually, the moment that you engage in addictive behavior, the cycle is not finished. There is another opportunity for you now to break the cycle, and that opportunity is to watch your mind. What happens in your mind after you engage in that addictive behavior that you want to break free of? And you will see that you actually start blaming yourself. There is this shame. That certainly was the case with me. There's this more negative. You blame yourself for, why did I do that to myself? Maybe I was free of addiction. Well, not free, but I didn't engage in addictive behavior for maybe a month, and then I sort of, I showed a moment of weakness and I did it. So now I have to start again. No, because that is the part of addictive behavior, is blaming yourself after you've engaged in it, is part and parcel of the addictive behavior. So what do we do with that? What do we do about it? Well, we can watch that blame, we can watch that feeling of guilt and shame that comes up when we relapse on our addiction. And that will also be very helpful for us on our path to recovery. Okay? Because some people can stop themselves from drinking, and that's how they break their cycle of addiction. But some people cannot do that. Some people, the impulse is so strong that they have to engage in addictive behavior. There's no other way. What do? What should they do? Well, for them, the opportunity is after they engage in the addictive behavior. Try not to blame yourself, Try to accept that, okay, it was too much for me. And this goes back to my previous video on not blaming yourself, because you can realize that at that moment, I got overwhelmed for whatever reason, and I decided to escape. That's a normal thing. Of course, you want to escape from negativity. That's the habit that you've developed over some time. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You did it, and maybe now you blame yourself, and that's also fine. That's also part of the cycle. So if you blame yourself after you've engaged in an addictive behavior, that is only going to make sure that you're going to repeat the addictive behavior. Why? Because, as I said in the beginning, addiction comes from inability to deal with negativity. And what happens when you start blaming yourself? Well, you are only adding to that negativity. You're only adding more negative patterns to your mind. So next time, well, you are more likely to want to escape that negativity because now there is so much more of it. You started blaming yourself, and it's more likely than you will engage in that addictive behavior. So one way of breaking the cycle is you engage in addictive behavior, okay, that's fine, you couldn't control it. Now you watch carefully what your mind says. Does it say, I'm a piece of shit, I am useless, I again did that? Well, that's just a part of that negativity that keeps you stuck in your addiction, right? And if you can accept that part, right, not the fact that you engage in addictive behavior, accept that too, obviously, because that's already done. But now accept that there's nothing you could do about that, okay? And try not to react immediately to that increased self-blame and self-negativity by engaging even more in addictive behavior, because that's how addictive patterns develop. You do it for the first time, then you blame yourself, and in order to escape this self-blame, you engage even more, and you get into a cycle there. Blame, addictive behavior, until you get exhausted, right? Or run out of drugs, or whatever that might be. So what I'm suggesting is try not to miss that opportunity that comes immediately after you engage in addictive behavior. Because over time, that will, if you can sit with that, that will make it less likely that you engage in addictive behavior in the future. Okay? So obviously this applies to many addictions, maybe all addictions that we know of. So what this doesn't mean, obviously, is that you get a pass on your addictions. What this doesn't mean is that, oh, well, okay, so I'm not in control, then I might as well use. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that once you've used, if that you couldn't help it, obviously, if you couldn't help it, then there's no point in blaming yourself. You know, just accept the fact that at that point, and you will see that it's actually very difficult. It's very difficult not to blame yourself after you've relapsed on your addiction. And that's part and parcel of all this negativity, all this, the pattern of addiction. Okay? So these are my thoughts on addiction, and I am hoping that you find this video useful. And if you did, please spread the word, and I will talk to all of you very soon.